So Ashish, I would like to know that why you choose SaaS, right? He was not in SaaS, right? Which company it was?
No, I am not sure if I should name the company, but
You
it
should definitely. If it's a big
so-
company, we'll get more views. So yeah. What is the alternative way where I can build this? Because we know the alternative way to make website right now. Webflow is there.
you can't really build this softwares on Webflow or Wix. These are very complex softwares that you are trying to build.
How coding language, impact this kind of work? So people are writing in Ruby, Node.js, or something
That
like that.
doesn't really affect a lot.
Are you kidding?
No. That
So why these people? Then why so many languages are there?
if I was starting a company, right? If I was starting a SaaS product or any product that I was building.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So today we are back with one more podcast. Now we are going to kick the SaaS, right? And today we have our partner in kicking SaaS, right? Before starting, he's Ashish, by the way, right? Before starting, I just wanted to present some number. By 2031, US market, the US market, which is a king of SaaS, that has predicted that this entire SaaS industry globally will be $1 trillion industry, right? And the current numbers by 2023, it was 296 billion only, 296 billion USD to 1 trillion USD in just 6 years, right? And one more thing, if you're looking for job and all those of thing, right? So recently, Finance Online launched a data that 12,000 employment has been generated in SaaS only in July, right? We are setting the first 10 days of July, but so far 12,000 employment has been generated. Now let's start this entire podcast and session, right? Ashish, what you do?
So I'm a full stack developer and I develop software. I particularly develop software for SaaS companies. And it has been a great time so far because SaaS is kind of pretty challenging because it is more towards customizations. And when it comes to customizations, it's more towards client facing because what client wants, they demand, they put requirements, we have to work on that. That is what it is. It is not like a software that you build and that's out in the market and people can just download it and use it. That's not like that. They have certain demands. Each client can have certain demands. You make a base product and on that base product you start to build, you start to customize as per what the client requires.
Okay, by the way guys, I just wanted to make sure that you guys are understanding the concept of it, right? So I'm coming from a sales background, Ashish is coming from a tech background. So now we are completing the whole circle, right? So this kind of entire weekly series of podcasts will be there. We will keep talking about things, how this SaaS works, in terms of development, in terms of coding. Whenever we talk about SaaS, the most part of it is technology, right? We are automating things. Even SaaS companies now focusing on lean kind of structure. So they're not hiring much people. They are like to work with 10, 12 people until they are making some good amount of dollars in millions or something like that. And after fat series A round, they are going to get the new team or maybe increasing the team and making sure that number of people are increasing more than 10 or 12 or 15, whatever it is, right? So Ashish, I would like to know that why you choose SaaS, right? He was not in SaaS, right? Which company it was?
No, I am not sure if I should name the company, but
You
it
should
wasn't.
definitely. If it's a
Okay,
big company, we'll get more views. So
So I
yeah.
was at Capgemini. It is a service-based company, not really a SaaS company. SaaS companies are more like product-based companies. They own the product, and the people that subscribe are basically just subscribers. They don't really own the underlying asset of it. So it was a service-based company that I was earlier working at. Now it is a product-based. We follow a SaaS model for sales and business. Yeah, that's how it is.
So for a person who really wanted to understand what exactly a developer do in a SaaS company, how you'll explain? Just explain it that I don't know anything. I mean, what exactly you do apart from killing the bug?
Okay, so we develop software, right? We develop software that have certain requirements based on each and every client. Each and every client has their own requirements, their own set of requirements. We connect with them because if you're working at a startup, most SaaS companies do not have a lot of employees because they do not require that much employees. So let's say you are working at a startup and it is a SaaS startup, right? So what you have to do as a developer is keep on connecting with clients, because whenever new client is onboarded, they have their own certain requirements and they cannot directly communicate with the operations team, because operations team is something that comes on the later stage. First we have to develop the software, right, so that the client even starts to use the software. So we have to, like, as a developers, we connect to clients directly. There are salespeople also that do the initial connection between the tech team and the client. Later on we pick it on, right? We develop the software as how they want and we present it to them, and it's an iterative process. It's not like the client would say that I want this and you develop and the client is going to be satisfied with whatever you have developed, because it's an iterative process. The client might have missed some part of it. You did not like really understand what the client exactly wanted. So it's a iterative process. You keep on developing, you present it to the client comes up with a new set of requirements, you develop them, you present to the client, and it repeats on until the client is basically satisfied with the product that you have built. And then on, you basically the client will finally start using the software, and later on the operations team comes into the play.
I wanted to go deep. When you're talking about development, what exactly you mean?
So development is on multiple stages. So we see if any integrations are required, because that there is a possibility that
I'm really wanted to cut you off, right? I just wanted to start a company, which will be the SaaS company, right? Let's take an example. I wanted to make a coffee selling company, right? I'll build a SaaS on top of that. I don't know what product I'm gonna build, but I'm gonna build a SaaS on top of that. You're a coder, right? You're a developer, right? Now we are finding a company, right? We become a co-founders together, right? And what you gonna do on a very first day?
So on the very first day, it is mostly sitting down with the team and deciding on what exactly you are building. Like, everyone needs to be aligned on the product they are going to build, right? And the product, how it is going to really work in the market. So that is what the first thing is, to get your team members in place and decide on what we are building, how we are going to build it. And then on, it comes to like different stages. So initially, obviously, if the product is not ready, the tech team is going to be in the hard play. So the tech team works on it, decides on the architecture. Now by architecture, what I mean is designing the whole system. How, like, whether they are going to have a web application. So basically, would people be able to access your product on the website? Would they be able to access your product on a mobile application? This is what we first underline. And after that, we pick on each one. So let's say if it is a web app and as well a mobile app, it would obviously need a backend, a server.
What do you mean by web app and mobile app?
Web app is basically just like if you're using Netflix. Let's say you are using Netflix. There are both, right? You use Netflix on your app as well, on your phone, and also on the website. So the website is basically the web app, right?
Why we are calling web app, not the website? What is the difference?
Okay, yeah, that's actually a good question. So website, when we refer to website, we are referring to a static website. It is dynamic in terms of responsiveness. So basically, by static, I mean that it is not going to store much of your data. It is not going to it's just a website that you can visit. So for example, if I would take Wikipedia, you can't really say Wikipedia is a web application, because you are not going to interact with it. You can search for it and then you can read the article about it. That's just the thing. Or your portfolio website. So a lot of people have their own portfolio website set up, right? They are not web applications, they are just websites. You cannot really do much apart from like maybe like if they have a contact page, you can just write an email and it will send the email to them. Apart from that, there is nothing much in that. So these are the websites that we refer to as websites. Now when it comes to web applications, we are referring to as a complete application that is presented to you on your browser. That is why we called it web app. So for example, Amazon shopping app, right? It is available on the website. You can go to amazon.in and whatever comes in right front of you is the web application. It is a complete application presented to you as a website. So that's the basic difference between website and web application. So that was what I was referring to earlier. So you decide on like where your product is actually going to be. It is going to be on the App Store, Play Store. It is going to be on the web. And then you start with the architecture, or how you are going to build it, what database you are going to use, what APIs you need to build, all of that.
Mm-hmm. So when you were referring, building the structure, architecture, right? I wanted to make sure that we are going deep down all of this, right? But that's one part which is very interesting, web app, right? When I'm building a website, right, and I'm storing the data of some client, right? Let's say I wanted to book a demo, right? I'm going to put my email ID, I'm going to put my my phone number, all sort of thing, right? And that's I'm taking from website and putting in my CRM, right? It's just a kind of bridge which I'm just building, right? But still it's storing a data, right? The way we are doing the loggings, right? We are signing in with the SSO or with Google or something like that, or maybe we are putting my email ID and password, right? Is that a part of website or is it a part of web app?
I think you're referring to like softwares like Apollo and all, right?
Yeah, kind of.
So they are web applications. They are complete set of applications that are presented to you on the browser. So they do come under web applications.
Mm-hmm. So if anyone wanted to build a web application, right? Forget about the mobile application. We will talk about later on stages, right? By the way, guys, we are gonna have this kind of interesting discussion every week. So if you're new to this channel, please subscribe, because in this Kick SaaS channel, we are going to cover a lot more beyond the sales part. We are going to cover the tech part, definitely. So Ashish will be my co-host, your host or co-founder? Co-host.
We'll decide on that.
We'll decide on that. Yeah. So although I'm more famous, right? So
Yeah.
So co-host will be there, and then we will bring new people to talk about other part of it, right? And yeah, so that's why you should definitely subscribe this channel. So I was asking, if I really wanted to build a web app, right? And I don't want it to put too much brain in it, right? What is the alternative way where I can build this? Because we know the alternative way to make website, right? Now Webflow is there. I guess there are some other tools are also there. Wix is there, right? Is there any other no-code platform where I can build this kind of web app?
I would say that the most famous no-code platform that we have currently is WordPress. Even though I have not really used it, but I'm aware of it. You could basically hire a freelancer if you don't want to do it yourself, right? So you could find WordPress freelancers online, and then they would basically develop the whole application for you. Apart from that, the difference, you can't really build these softwares on Webflow or Wix. The reason being that these are very complex softwares that you're trying to build. Just because they are presented on the website doesn't mean that they're not complex. They are very complex. There's a lot of architecture that goes into it. There's a lot of development. There's a lot of integration that goes into it, right? So these are not drag and drop website. You cannot just go to certain websites and you drag and drop elements and expect to make such web applications into real life, right? So, but WordPress can do that for you because there are a lot of plugins available already. So there is a set of plugins that you can use.
What is plugins?
Plugins is basically plug and play, right? So you have components, you have login components, so basically for authorization you need a component, right? Whenever someone comes to your application, they need to authorize first. So that is a plugin. You could call it as a plugin. So like a shopping cart, right? That is another plugin. Then you could think about payment methods, right? The payment process. Let's say you are making a shopping website or something like that. You need a payment, right? Payment method. That is a plugin. So these plugins are pre-built. You could just use them in your application. That is what plugins refer to. Just plug and play.
Well, okay, so I really wanted to know that you write code, which is backend, right?
It's both. I'm a full stack developer, so I write both.
Please explain the backend, frontend, and full stack.
Okay, so front end is basically something that the client can directly see. So if you're going on a website,
the UI UX part.
Yes, exactly. The UI UX part of it. So someone is going to design the UI UX, and then another person is actually going to build that, actually going to code that. That guy is the front end developer, if that's all he does, right? So that's the front end of it. Whatever the client can see, the UI UX is the front end. The back end is basically what the client is not able to see, like communication with the service, writing APIs, or authorizing the user, right? So you log in, you enter your email and password, you log in. There's something that is happening in the backend. There's something that is verifying that it's actually you that is login and not just someone else, right? So these all part come under the backend part of it. So someone that writes this code is referred to as a backend developer, and someone that does both is basically a full stack developer. They can do both front end as well as backend.
So you write code, which we cannot understand. A common people cannot understand, right? You only understand. It's a love letter which you are writing to your personal girlfriend, right? But the guys, he just had a breakup.
No.
And
Let's not discuss. That's a topic for another day.
so, okay, so you write codes. Where you write code and how you make sure that when you are writing code and you are launching it, right? You call it launch, right? Or sprint, what do you call it?
You could call it as a deployment.
Deployment, right? So you call it deployment. When you are deploying it, how people can see there's a new pop up, new features, where you write code and how you make sure that it's. I mean, if I'm making something, if I'm baking something, right? I put flour, I put water, and then I mix it up, and I make dough, and then I put it on pan, and then make up a pan fry or something like that, right? This is what, so I can see the process. But when I'm using a SaaS, a software, right, I cannot see the codes and all those stuff, right? And I don't know where you guys are writing it, how you're writing, and how you're deploying it. Can you take us through that process?
You have used Notepad. You have used Google Drive, Google Docs, right? You type there, right, and you store it. We have similar things, similar softwares where you can write code. Those are called code editors. Okay, so you write code there. You are satisfied with your code. You're done with the coding part. Then you want to deploy it. You deploy it on your servers, on the production servers, and it is live to the users. So there are two ways basically. Not two ways. There are two methods basically. So one is where you have built a feature that you want to promote to the clients, that you want to promote to your users. You want them to know that you have made a new feature so that they could use and you can get traction from that. And there is another way is that you don't want anyone to know that you have released. It has to be as seamless as possible. So there's these two things basically. So if you are writing a new feature, you want the users to know that you have a new feature added. Please use this feature. Please take a look at this. And other one is that you have written something that basically fixes some bugs, or maybe just a very small change that doesn't really need to be put into attention of the users. So that's the whole thing. You write the code, you deploy, and then there's two things. Either you want to push it to the users, or either you don't want to push it to the users. But it is live.
You are writing code on softwares like code editors, right? What are the names of those?
VS Code,
Sublime
Text,
right? Now you're writing code on that.
Them.
Yeah, you're writing code on that, right? And when you wrote a code, it's a good code. You copy it, and where you deploy it, where you paste it. How from this software to my actual SaaS, which I'm building, how this connection happened?
Okay, I'll take you to the entire flow then. Okay, so I have written the code. I'm fine with it. Okay, the code works great. I tested the code, it works. Now it is time to actually make it live for the users. Say, we have repository managers, version control managers, right? Softwares where you actually store your code. You could think of it that it is a folder present on the cloud somewhere, and whatever file that you are typing in, that file is being updated at that place. Now there's a server that is looking at whatever code you are holding, right? So what the server would do is that you tell the server, hey, I have just made a change. Please make it live to the users. This is basically the Devops part of it, making the deployment. The servers, what would they do is they would pick the code that you have just written.
Are these servers are AWS or something like that?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So this could be EC2 instances, basically AWS, or you could use GCP. GCP is basically Google Cloud Platform. So you basically tell the servers to, hey, I have just rewritten some code. I want you to take this code and build it or migrate it. So what the servers would do is they would restart. They were running some file, which was the older version of it. They would restart the code. They would take the new code and run that file now. So you're basically telling those servers to run your new file, and whatever the changes present in the new file were there, they would be visible to your users now. So that is what deployment is. This certain part comes under the DevOps, handling the whole development operations kind of.
That's an interesting profile, by the way, guys. I mean, this is growing a lot because there's so
Yeah,
many
DevOps
deployment
is
happening.
really
Yeah.
needed, because if you have DevOps skill, it just outshines you from the rest of the colleagues.
So it's operation, but it's a development operation, right? So it's not exactly operation. You're also doing development and then also doing the operation. So that's why it's a half of development and half of the operation.
Yes, regarding the service.
Now, how coding language, impact this kind of work? So people are writing in Ruby, Node.js, or something
That
like
doesn't
that.
really affect a lot.
Are you kidding?
No. That
So why these people? Then why so many languages are there?
if I was starting a company, right? If I was starting a SaaS product or any product that I was building, and I'm fine with certain language, I've learned that language and I'm building on it. And let's say that grows. Okay, now I need one more person to work on it. Now that one more person is obviously going to work on the same language, because that is what I've built so far, right? So this is how companies adapt to the language. So there are certain cases where languages do affect. For example, if you want to write backend code, Python is more preferred in terms of Django. Python is more preferred in terms of Flask, because there are frameworks. The frameworks exist. What frameworks do is make your life easier. So there are frameworks for front end. There are frameworks for backend. Famous frameworks for front end are React or Angular, right? So these are written in JavaScript. So whoever wrote React or whoever wrote JavaScript, Angular decided that they want to use JavaScript. Why JavaScript? Because JavaScript is anyways famous in front-end world. All the websites that you see, basically web browsers understand JavaScript, right? So it is preferable to use JavaScript as your language when you're developing websites, at least for the front-end part of it. So whoever wrote React or whoever wrote Angular, which are the frameworks which make a front-end developer's life easy, decided to build them on JavaScript. Now that is why JavaScript is being used. That is how it picked up. So anyone that wants to now work on it is also supposed to work on JavaScript now. Then there's also backend. So backend, so we have famous frameworks in backend like Django, Node.js, and Flask. These are like the major ones that a lot of people talk about. So Django and Flask are built on Python. Whoever made Django and Flask decided that they wanted to use Python for this language, for this framework, and now anyone that wants to work on it has to use Python, because that's just the set. Anyone that developed Node.js decided to build it on JavaScript. Now anyone that wants to work on Node.js has to use JavaScript, because it's just built on that, right? So that is how it comes to play. And apart from that, also, like, it depends on what you are building, how efficient it needs to be, right? So everyone wants to write efficient code that runs as fast as possible, but it also depends on whether it is actually feasible.
So you are saying whenever you're talking about writing the faster code, is it writing a faster code in terms of time, or is it writing the good efficient software because of writing the fast?
It is both. Based on time. So based on time, I do not mean by the development time, because if you, let's say, C++ is considered a quite fast language, okay, especially compared to Python. Let's compare this two. So now writing code in Python will take less time than writing code in C++. So in this perspective, where the development time comes into play, Python is going to win, because Python is much simpler. Python has a lot of modules. In modules, by that I mean what I referred to as plugins earlier. You could kind of make a connection between modules. There are a set of functions that already exist, and you could just use them, right? So Python makes life easier for the developer. It reduces the development time. But is Python faster than C++? No. Python is much slower compared to C++. C++ is much efficient when it comes to running the code, but it can take a lot of time because it is complex. You have to write a lot of lines compared to Python to make the exact same function.
Ashish, I also wanted to know, by the way, subscribe this channel. I also wanted to know that if I wanted to code right now, right, can I code? If I can't, what I should do?
You can code right now. You would take.
I don't know anything about that.
That is completely
right?
fine. No one knows when this starts, right? So it would basically take you a month, and after that you kind of would be familiar with the terms at least. So you have to basically create dots right now.
So guys, if you wanted to learn the entire coding in SaaS and wanted to build a product, right, we can also run a similar kind of series where Asis can teach how to write a code within 30 days. That channel we can take, right? So right, just comment down that 30-day coding challenge and we will run a similar kind of video, right? Apart from this podcast.
So I was saying that you could still like learn to code. There's no really the right time to do so, and it wouldn't take a lot of time. Yes, obviously to master to become an advanced coder or something like that, which even I am not right now. Right, it takes years for that, and people would still say that there's so much more to learn. But yes, someone that wants to start right now, obviously they can. You could like pick up with certain simpler languages if you want. I personally prefer to like learn like a decent language, in terms of complexity. So my first language was Java. Java is not considered really a simple language or neither a very tough language. It's kind of there in the middle somewhere. So I prefer to learn that, and then I moved on to other languages. But if someone wants to start with a simpler language, they can start with JavaScript or Python, is what I would say.
So you are also mentioning that people can switch the language and they
They
can also
have to kind of, because you cannot.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
my first language was Java. And so far right now, only time I've used Java was during my internships. Apart from that, I've never written any Java code so far. That was only during my 2 months internship. That's it. After that, I have not written any Java code. After that, I have to you have to kind of adapt to whatever technology you are building, right? So let's say you are hired at a new workplace. Now the workplace that you hired at, they are building a software based on Python.
Why they will hire you if you don't know the Python?
So companies, it's not like you know Java and companies would hire you just for that if they are not really using Java anyways. What companies would do is they will look if you're adapt and learning or not. So you could you even adapt to learning new things quickly? That is what also we look for. So from the couple of interviews that I have myself taken, we look for candidates who can adapt quickly to new technologies, because that is what we want. So as developers, it's going to change every year. We have to learn new things. We have to keep updating ourselves. There's no one thing that you learn and it's just going to feed you for the life.
You were also mentioning about the adaptation of new language in new company when you were joining a company and they are writing on some other language.
Okay, so was I was saying that I only had experience in Java in the beginning, and that was during the internship, because during the internship I was hired as an Android developer, and back at that time Java was the major language that was used for Android. So that was totally fine by that point. But later on, after my internship, I was offered as an FTE full time. So for that, I had to basically learn a lot of other things. So we were using frameworks, different frameworks for Frontend, different frameworks for Backend. So I had some time at around 20 days before starting my full time experience. So I had 20 days, and they informed me that these are the technologies that we use. Please go through this, and that was kind of enough time for me to at least pick on these things. And then after when I joined, I was introduced with a lot of other documentations within the company. So they provide documentations on how their code works, right? So you need to get familiar with the code that you are going to work with. You need to know what function does what. You need to know what file holds what logic. So that kind of basic stuff. So you kind of get familiar to it. You kind of get used to it. But at the end of the day, it is how quickly you can adapt. That's what we're looking for.
Okay, you mentioned a interesting point, right? I don't know if you're aware of not, but while working in sales, right, I have changed myself. I have changed the way I look. I have changed the way I talk. I have changed the way I think, and I also have to change the entire perspective, right? This entire book is here because of my sales career, right? What impact you realize in your lifestyle or maybe mindset or way of thinking after doing the coding? If any person start coding, right, what kind of changes they can feel in their day-to-day life?
I think I would say that they kind of start to think a lot, kind of tend to speak less. But it's obviously I cannot really say that for everyone. But at least for me, I was kind of spend more time thinking, because that's just how the way it is. When I'm writing code, it's not like I'm writing most of the time. I'm not going to type most of the time. Most of the time I'm going to think what I have to do, how I'm going to solve this issue, right? That is what I do. So most of the time it's about thinking. It is about iterating through your whatever, how you're going to approach this problem, what would be the best way to code it out, right? That is what it is. And apart from that, it's kind of like going through articles and all. So you kind of tend to read more, you kind of tend to have more, be more updated with whatever technologies are coming into the market. That is what basically makes change.
So you are, you have to have a mindset where you're solving a problem and you are thinking more of, getting a solution instead of, talking about the problem, right? This is what happened. And I also feel like this is the need of SaaS. I mean, SaaS force you to learn new things every day. SaaS force you to get equipped with the technology which is coming on a day-to-day basis. Every day there are new changes, new tools, right? New code language, new way of selling. There's so many SaaS, out there. There's so many people out there, and everyone trying to kick SaaS, right? So that's why you should subscribe to this channel, because we are kicking SaaS on it, right? So yeah, that's happening. Ashish, I would also like to know, in India, right? We can see the job market is very dead, right? People are not getting hired, and even though the new coder or developer which is coming in our picture, they're not that equipped with the technology. They're not, kind of good employees, right? They are not having that kind of mindset or skill, because you also reject so many developer. I don't know why.
that we kind of like look for like how quickly
Best of
they
the
can
best, right?
adapt.
Yeah. I can get it, right? So, and I believe that AI gonna kill most of the developers' job, because most of the code and all those things will be written by this kind of AI. So people who are very, very smart will be survive, right? So what are the trades you look in a developer whenever you are going to hire, or what kind of trade anyone can build in themselves to get hired with the best of the companies like Traco?
The biggest trait that I look for is how confident they are, because you need to have confidence in yourself, right? It's okay, it's sometimes okay to fake it, right? I completely understand when someone is actually faking it. They do not really know, but they're still confident. So that confidence kind of gives me an like confidence in themselves that they would basically adapt, right? It's okay that if they don't know certain things, it is completely fine. Not everyone knows everything, right? If I'm going to ask them 7 questions, three questions they might not be able to answer, but that is completely fine. It is completely okay, but you need to still have confidence.
By the way, guys, I just wanted to mention one thing. In market we have created so many buzz, and we have break the ice so quickly, because we customize and deliver very quickly, right? That's one of our USP. So whenever our client said, "Can you do it in week?" we said we will do it in 3 days, and we do it, because this kind of people, right? I know sales people definitely go and sell anything. I can, if you want me to sell anything, I will sell it out. But in SaaS, after selling, you also have to retain, because you are getting revenue on a month-to-month basis, right? It's a MRR business, it's a ARR business. Next year you have to renew it. So when you are thinking about making a good product, even though you are good with sales, you cannot survive without a good product, right? And for making a good product, you must have to have a good developer and good kind of tech side of it. And you also have to understand as a salesperson that what is your USP, how quickly you can do this kind of customization, what kind of customization your team is capable of. Not, I'm very much confident that whatever I'm committing to my client, my team will deliver sooner or later, right? I can put this customer in my waiting list, and after certain month I can launch that product with those kind of set of customers, and then my customer will be ready. So in Traco, we never build and then sell, we always sell and then build it. And I always make sure, even our entire team make sure that whatever we are committing, we are delivering it, right? So now the question out of it, right, that we have seen there's so many conflict happen in coder, developer, and the people who are out there in market, right? The people who are in market blame that coders are not doing their job. There's so many bugs happening, right? And the people who are sitting in a room and writing the code, they always blame that whatever we are building, they are not selling. I don't know why, right? How this happened and why this happened?
I would say that they both are right at their own places, because obviously if there are bugs, it is under the tech team's observation, right? So tech team is responsible for that, and if the client or the user is not able to use the product properly, that comes under operations team part, right? So they both are correct at their own places. But the end of the day, it is realizing that it's not operations versus tech or operations versus sales. It's us versus the user, right? And it's not even I shouldn't really say it's us versus the user, because we are all in the same team.
Wow. So guys, this kind of podcast will be there on this channel next week also, right? Don't forget to subscribe. Asis, you will be with me on this ride, right?
Yeah.
So we will keep kicking SaaS, right? So don't forget to subscribe this channel, Kick SaaS. And there's so many interesting conversations coming up. So we will cover a lot of things. We will cover sales, we will cover tech, we will cover entire framework, marketing, lead generation, hiring a team, getting a co-founder, all sort of things in Kick SaaS segment. And yeah, take care. Bye bye. See you in the next video.
Thanks a lot.